So you said first time in Austin, yeah?
Yeah.
What are some of the? You're only here for how many days?
Till Sunday.
Is your now fiance? She here?
No, which
Coming?
is,
I thought she was gonna come last time you mentioned.
I thought she was too, but they have her grandma's 80th, 90th birthday party, 90th birthday party, which is a shame because her sister lives here in Austin, but she's also
Oh,
not here. So,
so you've come
so it would have been a
at a
great trip
time.
for her to come, but
Mm.
they couldn't make it work.
That's a shame. So you have to come back now. So do you guys like gonna play UT every year?
I don't know about every year. I don't really know how the conference structure
Mm.
lines up, but we will play them. Let's assume every year. I think it would flip, so we'll play them next year in Baton Rouge,
Ah,
and then
okay.
come back.
I gotcha. But yeah, like we said, like we're gonna usually do like a rolling start. So I'm just gonna talk to you normally, and then when I flip the switch, you'll probably gather when we're gonna start. Are you just chilling?
I'm just gonna chill. You guys are all cozy. Just make sure you get cozy.
Yeah, I
Talk
think
into the mic.
so. Like, I might, I'm good like this, right? Yeah. Okay. Sweet. Yeah. So, yeah. What are some of the like when you come back? What are some of the things that you think you're excited to do here in Austin?
Oh, I have no idea.
You have no idea. So
No
yes,
idea.
you're.
I haven't done any research.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. That's different from Evan. Evan like does a ton of research. He's like, I get into town and I know I'll do a ton of things, um, but yeah. So obviously, you're here, you're playing UT, like,
Wait, Evan, we met at the Astros, right?
yeah,
Okay, that's right. I was like,
yeah,
I know we met. I just
yeah, yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I
Well,
already know
I
this guy.
told you that. Yeah, yeah.
But
You met DA when we came to Baton Rouge.
yeah,
Yeah, but we met Evan for sure.
strength guy at LSU.
yeah.
He's
You
a,
replace someone.
Jeremy McMillan was the strength coach last year, and he is at A&M now. And he was previously at A&M for like 10 years and went back.
Okay.
oh, I gotta turn this to silent. But yeah, I told you that you knew him.
No, you did.
Yeah, we got a lot going on right now.
Don't blame you.
But I was gonna say, like, so, like, obviously here to play UT, is it a 3-game series?
Yeah.
Okay. So, like, so how's it different? Like, you're in the MLB and now you come to college, so want to travel. Like, how different are things now that you're at this level? Plays just as crazy or just as mischievous as what they would be at the top level? They're a bit
Oh
more
yeah.
reserved.
Yeah, I mean no, their baseball players are just an interesting breed.
Yeah.
They're goofy. At this level it's 18 to 22, 23 years old at the professional level. You do have some that are 17, 18, but you've got them up to 35 and kind of all in between there. So at the pro level, different levels of maturity and
Mm.
stage in their life. Here they're in college, so sometimes they act more like kids than I would like.
Yeah, I got you.
But you got to understand like where they're at and that you were also there once. But it's just try to kind of teach them good habits. Like how do I actually become a professional? Because at LSU we kind of treat it like this is a professional baseball breeding ground or training ground, and so at some point you do have to flip the switch from I'm a college kid baseball player to like if I want to do this professionally, I need to ingrain the habits, do the things on a daily basis that are going to get me to that level, and then ultimately let me have success at that level.
I gotcha. Well, let's go back to the Astros for a minute there,
Yeah.
because obviously you were there for a few years. So obviously Astros, super successful franchise. You were there for five years, 6
Yeah, a
years.
little over 5 years.
Yeah. So you experienced like all those, pennants at the conference level, and then you went to the World Series, and they won it there. So like through that sort of success that they've had, like talk to me about like the standards that they have, like what makes them so successful and the standards that they have. Like, what did you learn from them as a strength coach coming up the ranks that you can take for you for the rest of your career?
So what makes them good was, I mean, when I arrived, there were elite players at the major league level, so that helps.
Yeah.
And that largely happened through free agent signings in Latin America, the Major League Baseball draft, and so most of the roster was really homegrown. Where in today's day and age, like that, you look at the Dodgers last year and they spent $1 billion on that roster or whatever it was to sign free agents and then win the championship. We were largely homegrown, and so you have to have success in the scouting department. If you're going to do that, you have to identify talent well, and then you got to develop it well. And I think that's kind of where we excelled, not just on strength and conditioning, but across the entire player development, R&D, strength and conditioning, like spectrum um, of player development. There was a big premium placed on development across all domains, and because of that, everybody had a seat at the table, which was really it was good to see. So you think about having, you call it like an athlete-centered model. It really was like that. It wasn't siloed off. The strength and conditioning coaches were expected to speak the language of the baseball coaches, and they were expected to speak the language of the nutritionists and everybody in the medical staff and R&D and the biomechanics staff, and everybody was kind of on the same page, pulling in the same direction, giving the players the same message was important, but also having all those people's fingerprints on one player's development. You had a lot of really high level opinions when it came to, hey, what does this player need to work on? Some things were glaringly obvious, but other ones required some in-depth discussion on, do we add this pitch to this player's arsenal? Does this guy need to throw this pitch more? And that's more on the strategic side of the game. But it was on the strength and conditioning, kind of what does each player need? What gaps do we need to fill for them to be physically ready to compete at the major league level? And again, some of those were glaringly obvious. If you get a high school kid drafted, 99% of the time, like, he's probably got to get bigger, stronger, more physical, faster, all that. But then, once a player's at a higher level and he's kind of reached that physical requirement, now we're looking at, what kind of movement strategies does this guy have? Can we help influence on-field movement through the strength and conditioning lens? Or is this guy lacking in certain on-field KPIs? So for a hitter, that might be exit velocity, might be sprint speed. For a pitcher, might be throwing velocity. Like, those are the ones that we largely viewed as, like, we can impact these through strength and conditioning. Which ones are not doing well? Are there any connections or correlations to the data that we have that shows, oh yeah, this is why he's not doing something well? Or do we need to dig a little deeper? So that whole process, developed over the course of probably a decade and became more robust while I was there. And so just being a part of, starting out as an apprentice level and then working up to minor league coordinator, kind of got to see that happen in the development of our processes, but also starting at that level and kind of working up really made it so, like, I understood, hands-on what we were trying to do, and philosophically, like, what the organization was trying to accomplish, so that the overarching goal of the player development system was produce players that are going to contribute for us at a high level in the major leagues, or that other teams are going to value, so we can trade them at the trade deadline and bolster our major league roster every year at the trade deadline, so that we can keep open our window of winning and success as long as possible.
Yeah, and it's obviously phenomenal to be part of those sort of success. I've been very fortunate that I've been able to have a bit of a taste of that back in Australia. But like, talk to like how much did that like change your life being part of that franchise and being part of that the World Series win? Like, obviously people know that, hey, it's hard work, and we have all like the little mottos, like we want to be the most hard work. I know this is more on a football lens, but like, I want to be the most hardworking team, the most disciplined team. And you can say it, but then when you realize what it takes to actually do it, it's a lot harder than what people think. So when you actually go and do it, like, how much did that change not just your career but just your life in general?
Yeah, I mean, on the career side, when you work for an organization like that and you're in a period where you're having sustained success, it obviously helps you personally in terms of career development or the next opportunity, which ultimately led me, here at LSU. So obviously a massive piece of that. Um, but on the personal side, kind of teaches you, like, we didn't leave any stones unturned. And one of the big, overarching philosophies for staff members was the encouragement of risk taking, not being reckless, but taking calculated risk. If you had a rationale why you wanted to try something and implement something that was new or innovative or against the grain, if you had a reason to implement something and you did and it backfired, it wouldn't be held against you. And I think that was a powerful learning
Yeah.
lesson, in terms of, one, like, you have to continue to push the envelope or you're going to get stagnant. But two, in terms of like people management, and when I stepped into the coordinator role, I had to, uphold that standard of, I want you guys as the strength and conditioning staff to try new things, try new ideas,
Mm.
test things out, see what works, what doesn't, report back. And we would have weekly or biweekly staff meetings as a strength and conditioning staff. And some of it's housekeeping stuff, but some of it is, hey, our strength coach in low A is trying this method with a couple players, and these are the results he's seeing right now. And so things like that happened all the time, and it just made everybody better.
So, like, you've got a lot of young kids that are both, athletes and even coaches that you're under your sort of like leadership, so to speak. And I asked this question a little bit because, my journey was, you start at the bottom and then you work your way up, and then you have other people's journeys that, they get very lucky to get straight to the top. But when you're a young kid coming up, the farm system in the majors or even in the minor league system, and then you are part of that organization that has success, and then you're asked to do it again and again and again, like the Astros have done for the last 5, 6 years. What are some of the ways that you can help, whether it be yourself, players, young players, or even young coaches, like just to block out all of the noise of expectation?
It's easier said than done. In the day and age of social media, especially. And so you'd see it at spring training, which they're finishing up right now. You have reporters everywhere, fans everywhere going crazy about this or that, and everybody's got an opinion on what you're doing. But at the end of the day, as long as those that are in the room, and this is a big message that Coach Johnson here at LSU preaches, like, it's all irrelevant. What anybody outside of the walls of this building thinks about what we're doing is irrelevant, good or bad. So don't let them fill your head up with hot air, but also don't let them drag you down. And that was it was the same there as it is now. Just the outside noise is irrelevant. It's hard though
Mm-hmm.
when you can, as a player or a staff member, and it's probably harder on the players than it is for the staff for sure. You can open up Twitter and see 1,000 people bashing you because you made an error in a game. But at the end of the day, you're the one out there on the field. You're the one working to deliver us a championship. And so, excuse me, I'm getting over a little cold. So what you're trying to do on the field there is important to the people in the building, your teammates, yourself, and that's it. Like, obviously the fans are important, but their opinion on what the operation is happening inside the building doesn't, hold any significance if you're doing a good job in terms of internally.
For sure. Well, let's move to, like, you just mentioned LSU, right? So they've had their own success recently, and again, I don't know anything about them from bar or soap, but clearly they won the College World Series in 23. The coach is obviously very successful, probably has his way of doing things, and all of a sudden, like, probably less than a year later, they've had coming off a season that they're probably not very happy with, or thought that they were not satisfied, they wanted more. Few changes, and you're one of those changes. So now you're going into, like, you know, the hotbed, so to speak, right? You're the new guy, and they've won prior to you coming, and now they've come off not a great season, and now you're in the fire. So how do you go about doing your business in that scenario? Because that's a different type of noise, right?
It is. I don't put any stock into what happened in 2024, 2023, or any years before that. Like,
But it lingers though. Yeah.
yeah, I would say 24 largely hasn't lingered in our building.
Oh,
And a big reason of that is 60% of our roster maybe is new.
okay.
So with guys in the draft last year in the transfer portal, we have a 40-man roster, and I think 26 between freshmen and transfers are new. So it's a very fresh group. So I, luckily on the strength and conditioning side, I wasn't stepping into a group that's like, this is how we do things. Like, why are you making us do X, Y, and Z? It was very, open ears, and kind of was there weren't really any disturbances in terms of like getting off the ground, programs implemented. Hey, this is how I run things. These are expectations. But yeah, I mean, 24 is not really discussed much, if at all. Even games that we've played this year are not really discussed much, if at all.
Well, like,
there are learning experiences that you take from games, whether you win or lose, and those are occasionally referenced. but the focus is on University of Texas this week.
For sure, yeah. Also, let me rephrase that then,
Yeah.
because the better question is like the players were used to a certain way of strength and conditioning, performance. Now you're the new guy. How do you stamp your authority? Coming in saying, hey, like I'm not trying to be the asshole, or I'm not trying to be the person that's going to be too soft. There's like a sensitive balance, right? So how
Yeah.
you come into that program that has had success in sort of same scenario, it's had success, clearly hasn't lingered, but it's a new crew, your new crew, new staff, maybe some of the same players. How do you bring that authority in without being too imposing or not a bit too soft?
Yeah, so
Does that make sense?
yeah, this is one of the interesting dynamics that's different in professional baseball versus collegiate baseball, or any professional versus collegiate sport, is that at the professional level, you better be a master at crafting relationships, because if you're not, the players are not going to be on board, and at the end of the day, they've got more power than you, in terms of being able to say, like, I am or am not going to do that.
Yeah.
At the collegiate setting, you have the opportunity to be a bit more of a dictator. You're never going to get great buy-in, if you're always that guy.
Yeah.
But there is a little bit more of a, I am the coach, here's what we're doing,
Yeah.
and then it just gets done. But I still really try and lean into what I learned in the professional side of things, is like, you've got to create good relationships. You have to understand what makes your guys tick. What do they want in terms of their career? What are they like as people? What is their background? Not just in strength and conditioning, but just as a person in general. And so when I arrived, I think I got there about 2 weeks before school started, and we already had maybe 15 or 20 guys that were kind of coming in and starting to work out and stuff before school started. And I just kind of sat back and just observed in the weight room, talked to them, started to get to know them, see what they're doing. Like, hey, you finish up your, summer program or whatever you're doing right now, and then we'll start with our stuff when school starts. And even that little piece of like, hey, I'm not coming in on day one and being like, you suck at that, you need to do something different here. It was just very observational, get to know you. I think I do a good job of that in terms of being relatable to the players. I understand the game of baseball at a really high level, from working at the Astros, but also having a playing career through college as well. And so I can speak to them in terms that make sense to them. And so everything we do is like, why is this important to me as an individual? Why should I be doing this? Well, if I can help you with your exit velocity, and that's going to increase your success at the plate, well, that resonates with the player. So it comes back to building relationships. Show the players that you have an interest and can speak in their language, their world, and show them that what you are trying to do drives value to them in some way.
Yeah.
So another example would be using our catapult data. It was something that had been there previously, but I think it had been kind of worn infrequently. And I am a stickler. Like, hey, we're going to wear this for practice. We're going to wear this for games. We're going to do this when we do speed and conditioning. And at first, it was kind of like, what are we doing here? And I've built out some dashboards in the catapult cloud and all these things. And then when the players come in and I say, hey, you're doing less sprints or more sprints today, and it's designed because your load from the day before was high or low, they go, oh, you're actually using this information. I'm not just like a lab rat.
Yeah.
That's important. So those are kind of the ways that I think you can kind of enter a new environment, new setting, new team, new people, and kind of hopefully hit the ground running seamlessly and not have this like weird hiccupy transition period.
Yeah, definitely. Well, was it like an aura of you coming from the Astros, MLB, World Series winner, then you coming out to the college level? Is there some sort of like aura about that, or is it just like you just I'm an ordinary dude?
There was, I tried not to carry myself like that, because again, I wanted them to buy into what we were doing, because I was able to help them believe that what we were going to do was going to help them have success. But yeah, there was some of that when I came in, like, oh, Houston Astros, World Series champion, professional baseball. And that's where those guys want to go. So that is a message I could deliver at times of like, hey, I've worked in the setting where you're trying to get, and I've seen guys succeed at that level. I've seen guys fail at that level. I've seen a lot of different results. Here's what pro organizations are looking for. Here's how I can help you get there. So again, I'm not trying to carry the aura of like, oh, I was in professional baseball, listen to me. But when that's the destination that a lot of these guys are trying to reach, it does carry some weight.
For sure, yeah. And obviously, a lot about you, and we're very similar. We're all about the people, right? And relationships can, open up doors, and the long lasting ones, you just never know where they can end up taking you both as a person and a professional. But as you also know, because you've been in it now at both levels, baseball is a very techie type sport, whether it be on the technical side or now starting to creep into sports performance, sports medicine. So when you have all these tech and computers and data, you can get lost in the minutia. So how do you like bring that back and have a focus to the human, right? Because I think we're getting lost in sports. It's almost like, there's algorithms this and AI that, and we have parts of that in our Valor system, but it's more to help provide solutions rather than to offset people, right? But then in some worlds of sport where it's just like we live and die by the data, or we live and die by the tech. I hate when people say, we are data driven,
Yeah.
because that means like, well, if you're data driven, then your processes you don't trust. And rather than being data informed, where it's like, I know what I want, the data is just like confirming or telling me a whatever way. So from the human element side of things, how do you bring all that back when in baseball it's like tech this, tech that, data this, data that?
Yeah, there's multiple pieces to this answer, and I think the overarching thing that I believe when it comes to any sort of technology use or integration is like it's got to help me make better decisions quicker and more accurately. That's the bottom line. If I can't do that, I'm wasting time and resources by using it. I forget what book I read. It was a short one that I kind of found in a closet or somewhere with the Astros. But it talked about sports science or it was about sports science. And, the big three pieces of it were data collection,
Mhm.
data centralization, and data visualization. And even at the professional level, like a lot of teams are at very different stages in terms of implementing and using that stuff. So everybody's got force plates now pretty
Mhm.
much. But most people can't get over some people can't get over the first hurdle of let's just collect good reliable data on a consistent basis. Like some teams are jumping guys 3 times a year. What are you going to do with that? So that's the first part. Let's collect data with good sound procedures on a consistent basis, actually be able to find some signal in terms of what we're looking for, and force play jumps are just an example there. Data centralizations where a lot of people get lost because then you just have data in different cloud systems, and if you don't have it in one AMS or whatever it is, good luck trying to inform a pitching coach on this guy's physical development.
Mm.
And then the visualization, different stakeholders want different information, whether it's front office, coaching staff, players, strength and conditioning staff. So you have to make reports that are relevant to those staff members or those players, and make them as digestible as possible while conveying a message. So one of the metrics or one of the things I'll print off for the players sometimes is just a top speed leaderboard from the day before. It's very simple. It's just a bar graph and has everybody's top speed. And in the grand scheme of things, probably doesn't really do much, but it's a report that gets them interested. Continues to have them, wear the sensor, get competitive with each other a little bit, drive some training intent. Great. Uh, I've got reports that I look at that are more in depth in terms of what am I doing in terms of sprint prescription. In baseball, such a dense game schedule that in season we don't really do any, outside of a few outlier scenarios. We don't really do many structured speed sessions with the position players, but they'll get top ups as needed, or we'll pull back on some of their volume as needed. If you're a guy who hit a ton of high speed running over a 3-game series, I'm not gonna like push you into the ground, and using the information there. So the data collection, centralization, visualizations has to be good. But there's also, I think, a ton of value to be gained from subjective information with the athletes. This goes back earlier in the conversation. You've got to have good relationships, good
Mhm.
trust with the players, so that when I see them every day. I see all 40 of them pretty much every day in some capacity, and so there's a lot of opportunity for just organic conversations where I can get information, and that's data too, right? It's not just, and some people get obsessed with the objective information, but subjective absolutely plays a part for me. So if I have a guy that jumps on the force plate and it's crap compared to the week before, and his game volume is relatively normal, but he tells me, "Oh, I'm in a fight with my girlfriend and
Mhm.
didn't sleep at all last night." Okay, well that makes sense. Maybe I do something to alter what we're doing today. Or maybe I don't, and we retest in a couple days and just see if we return to baseline, and if not, then I make a decision. Um, but that's the human element for me, is like piecing together the objective information with the subjective information, all with the goal of, let's just make better decisions for the individuals as players, which is then going to make better decisions for the organization as a whole. And for us, that's just win more baseball games.
Yeah, for sure. And as a strength coach, what is the best part about it for you?
I think it's being able to help guys progress their careers and progress as people. And that was one of the reasons I jumped into college baseball from the professional side of things, was strength and conditioning at the highest levels. And as I got closer to a major league position, to me, it looked like it kind of turned into glorified babysitting at times, and, trying to almost coerce guys into like getting into the weight room once every 2 weeks. And a lot of those guys have put in a lot of training hours throughout their career and are at a point physically where that development piece, physical development, isn't going to move the needle a ton for them. In the collegiate setting, it absolutely can. Most of them have big physical development needs and will continue to, into the early stages of professional baseball, but they also are still developing as people. So trying to help them on both fronts of that, I think is probably my favorite part. And again, it's a big reason why I jumped into the
Yeah.
collegiate setting. When I've gotten that question all the time, is why do it? And that's a big reason for me.
What about as in your journey? Like, we're not perfect, right? And we make a lot of errors. And is there something that happened in your career that you can look at, like there's the pivotal moment, whether it be something positive, but maybe even something super negative that flipped you on a dime to go, hey, like I want to be better at X, Y, and Z? Do you have any sort of like challenges or struggles that you've had as a strength coach that really like that said was like a breaking moment for you?
I don't have any that just jump out at me. I can think of times where I've had negative interactions with staff members, negative interactions with players, where I look back and I'm like, man, I should have handled that better.
Mm.
And when that does happen, and it's unavoidable, at times it's gonna happen eventually, whether you want it to or not. I think it's important to go and mend those relationships, talk to them after, hey, apologize for this, should have done this better, and then make sure it doesn't happen again. But there's not like one explosive moment negatively that, in any realm that I can think of, that really was like, man,
Not a
that
learning
was a
moment.
no.
What about when you played? Like, obviously, you're unique as a strength coach in baseball because you played, and I imagine when you played, it's very different to what you're dealing with now. Like, what are some of the experiences that you were like, "Oh, this wasn't great when I was playing," that you were like, "I'm going to learn from this so that I'm not going to make the same mistakes that my coaches made with my athletes."
Yeah, I think, again, not one. Well, I mean, I did tear my ACL as a junior
Oof.
playing touch football, although that was organized with the team, so I wasn't just being an idiot out by myself. But that was a moment that, you can see it all go like
Mhm.
that, and at that point, it's like, oh, I don't know how much more baseball I've got left. Which kind of opened your eyes to some things. But I think when I was done playing, looking back on my playing career, I think I think I had some talent, and I could have done some things better along the way to put myself in a better position to potentially continue playing into the professional level. That I probably didn't do as well. I probably didn't eat as well as I needed to. I probably didn't train as well as I needed to. I probably needed to party a little bit less than I did in college. Um, and I understand that, there are some guys on our team with similar habits, or just they've got to learn and grow up. And that kind of review of my career and was one of those driving things of like, if I can help guys understand this quicker, that's going to have a massive positive
Mm.
impact on a lot of people. So that was kind of, the review of my career at the end, of going like, what could I have done better? I don't want these guys to have regrets. And if I can help them, implement, like I said earlier, like those habits and those routines that are going to help them succeed, then that's a great positive.
And what about your obviously, congratulations, you just got engaged this year, so
Yeah.
it's pretty exciting. So I really want to obviously finish the last little bit of this conversation, getting into like just things outside of baseball,
Okay.
right?
Awesome.
But like, how has your relationship with your fiance, even family, mom and dad, siblings, how's that shaped you as a person, and what have you taken from that to you learn as a strength coach to be able to take some of those values?
Yeah, I mean, starting with Rachel, my fiance, we got engaged just over a month ago. Um, I met her during the COVID year, and I ended up going back down to Florida to coach at some point, and we did some long distance there for a little bit. She ended up moving down to Florida and was a teacher there. Ended up starting a sales career, so she was doing that. Had been in it for 6 weeks when I accepted the LSU job, and she went in and quit her job on the same day. And we had some discussions, in that time frame, like, do we really want to do this? And she's like, if you want to do it, I'm in. Like, we're going. And her support and having somebody like that is super important to me. She takes care of a lot of things on a day-to-day basis. She works from home now with a new position, which will be nice if I ever get fired or leave. Because she won't have to walk in and quit another job. But she works from home and she takes care of a lot of things that allows me to do what I do every day. And we put in a lot of really long weeks, long hours here, trying to win a national championship. So I'm extremely grateful for her and her support. Family wise, my mom is probably one of the strongest people I know. She's been through some pretty, tough things in her life. But she is super resilient, super successful. And so just her work ethic, her ability to deal with adversity has taught me a lot in terms of those realms.
So, other than the athletes that you work with, like, why do you do what you do? Like, what drives you? Like, is there, like, yeah, what drives you?
So part of it is, I want to help as many people as possible. Whether that's my athletes or, through posting content on social media. I think I've been able to reach more coaches and athletes across the high school and youth populations now, which has been great. But I'm competitive as hell, and this is a good profession for that.
Yeah.
Personally, I want to get better and, every single day at, all walks of life. But when you're in a position where everybody's pulling in one direction to win a national championship, and there's 300 baseball programs in the country, and there's one left standing at the end. Well, that's a pretty tall task,
Yeah.
and that drives me.
So, baseball right now is your life, but what sort of things do you like to do when you're not doing baseball, right? Or strength and conditioning? Like, what are some of the things that you enjoy doing?
So when I lived in Florida, I was a big golfer.
Mm.
Um, Golf scene is not the same in Baton Rouge as it is in the South Florida, golf capital of the world. So I try to when I can. I play some disc golf. Is something I picked up while I was actually rehabbing my ACL back in college with some buddies. A lot of fun, kind of mixes hiking and golf, which are two things I like to do. But just be outdoors. I like to just get around, move around. I've dabbled with guitar here and there in the past. It's something I haven't picked mine up in a while.
Yeah.
But was something I used to do pretty frequently.
You got
Uh,
any songs that you can that you've perfected? Yeah,
uh,
to swoon your now fiance.
I hate to say it, but I could play Wonderball.
Oh, there you go.
She hates when I play it
I
because
love it.
I'll walk in and that's the first thing that I'll play, and she'll just be like, "You're too much."
Did you like play that song when you proposed, or she's like, nah, I don't want that.
No, 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 no. She probably would have said no if I had done that. But yeah, pretty simple. Don't do
Yeah.
a ton. I like to travel when I can.
Any
So
locations on the bucket list?
bucket list, Southeast Asia,
Oh, there you go.
more of Europe. I've done London. We're supposed to hit Barcelona on that trip and got
Yeah.
canceled with some COVID restrictions and things like that. So a lot more of Europe. There's too many on the bucket list. The one I'm looking forward to is hopefully we play through Omaha this summer. And then one of my buddies is getting married in Southern California, so I think we're gonna take a trip out to. We're gonna fly to Northern California, take a
Yeah.
couple days to work our way down the coast. So it's one we're looking forward
Well,
to.
that'd be fun. Yeah. And what about like any routines, morning routines, like anything like that that gets you ready for the day?
I have nothing set. It just kind of a daily schedule changes so much. Some days I get up, go for a run, eat breakfast, go over to the complex.
Mm.
Some days I wake up, go straight over there, work for 2 hours before I even eat breakfast or think about anything else. So nothing. I'm not super routine oriented. But in terms of like, I try and train, 6 or 7 days a week in terms of lifting or running or something. So those morning sessions are nice to knock those out. I kind of hate doing it in the afternoon or evening because I'm just dead. But yeah, it's it. Pretty simple. Nothing
Yeah,
crazy
fair
going
enough,
on.
fair enough. Well, I think I like this one to sort of wrap it up.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, like when it's all said and done, whether it be how your players, coaches, peers, family, soon to be wife, you know, how would you want them to remember you for the person professional that you are when it's all said and done? You, hey, I'm going to retire. I'm going to go off. I'm going to get a house in Hawaii and just live my life. Like, how do you want to be remembered for at the end of it all?
I think hardworking is one that comes to mind. Having the ability to persevere, because as you know, and a lot of strength and conditioning professionals know, like it can be tough at times. It can be trying. You can, run into burnout, fatigue, all sorts of different things. You could be fired 6, 8 months into a job that you weren't expecting to be fired from, and now you got to figure out the next part. So perseverance is big in this field. When I'm married and eventually when we have kids, I do want to be. I don't want to be the coach that never saw his kids grow up. So that'll be something that's important to me. In terms of those that I worked with, I hope they know I gave everything I had, for their benefit. And that, I really care about all the athletes that I coach and I want them all to succeed. And, I hope that, because not everything I ask them to do ever is easy, and I'm not always going to be your best friend, but at the end of the day, like, I hope you can see that, like, I had your best interest in mind. So, all those things.
And that's awesome, man. And I appreciate you coming and have a chat. I know you and I have had some fun conversations
Yeah.
over the last year or so, but Evan, do we have as to commemorate your first time in Austin and maybe a crappy engagement present, but we have our new Valor merch. So I just want to present that to you and say, hey, thanks,
I'll rep
appreciate you for coming by, and
Thanks.
we should do this again.
Absolutely.
And all the best against UT.
Thank you.
Let's do it.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.